Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I hope this finds you well. I hope the sound is on for a change. I think I've got all the settings correct for a change, which are probably famous last words from me. But I can see already Amanda is online. Good morning, Amanda, there in the Wairarapa. Beautiful. What I keep saying, we're blessed in this country. We have some amazing places. In fact, I'm struggling to think of places that are not amazing. But look, welcome to all of you tuning in to Solid Ground. I think this is something like the 26th episode, which I find in itself quite remarkable. Granted, we're family first. We can't be easily cancelled. But you're sort of used to finding that things don't fly, certainly when I was in political life. So it's great to be at episode 26. And for all of you joining me across social media, welcome. Solid Ground's a chance to chew the fat, if you will, on matters political, cultural and social for about half an hour with me, Simon O'Connor, if you're wondering who I am. You'll be obviously viewing this on the likes of Facebook or X, LinkedIn. If you want to comment like Amanda has done, I'm just going to show you because I've got these funky little buttons that I can press. If you want to comment, say hello, let me know where you are, ask any questions, or like Philippa here, good morning to Philippa. You can do so by being on the Facebook page for Family First or on Family First's YouTube channel. Comments that you write there on those two vectors, those two conduits. God, I'm trying to, where's all the big words this morning? All those two platforms come directly to me, just like Chris has done here from beautiful Napier. They'll come straight through to me. If you're commenting on my LinkedIn or my Facebook, welcome. I'll have to read those later. So great to have everyone here. Look, some big topics today, as you might expect. But one thing I'm going to get to straight away, we've got lovely Rosie there in Taupo. I'm always envious. I love Taupo. I've probably said to you before, Rosie, my wife and I, Rachel, we love going to the Hilton there. It's our little treat if we're doing a very long road trip and then walking around, of course, Taupo itself. So amazing. So look, a few things to mention. So some of you will, we've got to get to the important things first as I grab my coffee mug. So some of you have been asking about these mugs, which I'm very happy to give away. That's the good news. The bad news, if I could put it, sorry, I've been distracted. I just love this title, Awake Not Woke. Good morning there in beautiful Blenheim as well. I must confess, it's been quite a while since I've been in Blenheim. I think the last time I was there with the local MP, Stuart Smith, so that dates things, but I just love that. Awake, not woke. Love it. Anyways, I keep saying we've got these lovely mugs. I'm happy to give them away. That's the good news. The bad news is it's costing me about $9.50 to courier them to whoever. So at the moment, I've got this little, here's the button I'm looking for. Don't know if you can read this. I'm calling it the Mugs for Mugs campaign. I'm saying that in light humour, guys. But if you'd like one of these mugs and you're happy to cover the cost of me sending it to you anywhere in New Zealand, drop us a line at admin@familyfirst.org.nz or just replace admin with my name, Simon at familyfirst.org.nz, and I will organise that. I've got some wonderful colleagues at Family First who are probably having conniptions at the moment going, oh my God, extra work as we're sending cups around the country. If they're tuning in, I'll help you out. But as I say, very happy to give away the mugs. I just need, if you wouldn't mind, to cover the courier costs. Of course, if you want to be a little bit more generous and support the work of Family First, you are very welcome. But long and short, drop me or the team a line at either simon@familyfirst.org.nz or at admin@familyfirst.org.nz. Let us know your name, your address, and we'll get the mugs. We'll get the mugs to you because I think I always get it. There we go. That said, the controversial part at the moment, I suspect for many of you, is going, what does he keep in his coffee mug? And it's a mochaccino because I cannot decide between a coffee and a hot chocolate, which I'm happy to admit. Anyway, mugs aside, as part of my Mugs for Mugs campaign, again, said tongue-in-cheek, some big news. This is the main one, actually, because you may or may not have heard about it, except via Family First and the writings of someone like Brendan Malone. The review of the euthanasia law was released a few days ago, I think on the 20th actually, let's say just under a week ago. Can't remember if it's the 20th or 22nd. I think it was the 20th. Long and short, you will have heard absolutely nothing about this in New Zealand's media. When I did a quick search last night, just Euthanasia NZ, I didn't see anything reported. But you'll remember myself, Family First, and the wider team were encouraging you to put in submissions a few months back. And we also highlighted a number of concerns that whistle-blowing members of the Euthanasia Review Committee had highlighted, such as incomplete reports, a woman euthanized without an interpreter, so on and so forth. So some pretty major problems. But the context of all of that was this review that was happening. So it's legislated, and the review had to happen within 3 years of the law passing. So obviously, we're at 3 years. Over 1,000 New Zealanders have had their lives terminated, which personally I think is a very high number, and it will only get higher, by the way, if you are following the likes of Belgium or Oregon, Canada, of course. My colleague Arla is actually doing some great research on this at the moment, so we'll be publishing that. But long and short, they dropped this review, and I suppose there's two broad points. One is what's in it, and by the way, it's like 166 pages, so it's long, and there's about 22 recommendations. Some are pretty banal, but the real kickers, if you had to reduce what the review says, is firstly, everything is fine, which we know it's not. As I said to Jack Tame on Q&A, we don't need to over-egg it. I'm not saying the euthanasia system is absolutely horrendous. Well, conceptually it is, but in terms of its operating. But there are issues. As I mentioned, whistleblowers. These are medical doctors, academic ethicists who have said, hey, there are problems with the system. None of that appears acknowledged in this review. The second point is that they want to remove conscience rights. So doctors at the moment do not have to give the name or phone number, email of doctors who are prepared to terminate someone. A doctor can just say, look, I'm not a supporter of euthanasia. You need to go on to the euthanasia website, or it's something called SCENZ. It's an acronym, SCENZ. Long and short, they're wanting to change the law now to force these doctors and nurses to talk about and promote euthanasia. Now, I think that is absolutely appalling at a whole number of levels. And the fundamental one is, of course, pro-death advocates are all about choice. If you ever want to try and debate someone on euthanasia, it's all about choice. But here we have a recommendation for the Ministry of Health, and I suspect strongly endorsed by the likes of David Seymour, that doctors do not have the right to choose to object to this. That they will have to be part of it and compromise their conscience. It's a bit like the abortion space. Some doctors, some nurses want absolutely nothing to do with it. They don't even want to be promoting it. They don't want to be actively handshaking someone across to an abortion or to a euthanasia. But this is what the law wants to strong-arm them to. So as I say, it's all about choice, supposedly, choice to end your life prematurely, but no choices for the doctors, no choices for the nurses. And the freedom of conscience is a pretty fundamental human right. But as I say, the government potentially, through this review, will want to strong-arm doctors and nurses. And the same is with hospices. They want to force hospices to allow euthanasia on their premises. So at the moment, most hospices do not allow that. It's an antithesis. It's the opposite of what hospices want to do. They see palliative care as completely the opposite of euthanasia. They don't want anything to do with it. There's a few outliers, like the Rotorua Hospice in South Auckland. They're happily knocking their patients off, sadly. But by and large, hospice says, no, we don't want to do it. But this review says, no, we wouldn't mind, actually. We wouldn't mind forcing hospices to do it. And their argument, just very quickly, is that the patient's choice needs to come first. But the problem is you can balance both the patient's choice and the wishes of the hospice and the doctors. Put it really, really bluntly, if you're compos mentis enough, if you're desirous enough to end your life early, you're competent enough to find a willing doctor. You don't have to force other doctors into what you're choosing to do. And equally so, you can find another location to end your life. You don't have to force a hospice to do so. So to me, particularly around the doctors having to tell you about which doctors and nurses will help you die early, If you're really desperate to kill yourself, I suspect those people are, competent enough to jump onto Google, onto the Ministry of Health website and find the contacts that are needed. So it just strikes me as all a little bit crazy. So anyway, and good morning. So just very quickly, good morning to Bella. Lovely to have you here. And she also makes an exceptionally good comment. It's ideology, absolutely. Long and short, a lot of the progressive or the woke, however you want to term them, once they get something into law, they then believe it's moral. So you saw this in the marriage space too, actually, which people are going, what? Once they passed the gay marriage, effectively, they said, well, 2 men, 2 women could marry. Initially, they said, look, that won't prevent anyone, particularly who wants to be a marriage celebrant, from registering. But soon after the law was passed, regulations, I think it probably was regulations, that unless you were prepared to do gay weddings, you could not become a celebrant. So a Christian or a Jew, a Muslim individual who wanted to become a marriage celebrant could no longer. And you're seeing the same with euthanasia now. It's like, well, okay, it's a choice for the patient, but no one else has to be complicit. Now that it's been law for 3 years, now we're going to actually regulate that it's just normal healthcare and no one's allowed to object to it. They've said it's now moral, it's fine, there should be no objection. So, yeah, and Rosie says, what about the Hippocratic Oath? Well, yeah, first of all, do no harm. Well, this is always the fundamental argument, isn't it? But of course they're doing harm. But they wrap all this up, Rosie, in very happy euphemisms now. It's not lethal injections, because it's the same. It's not legal to tell you what the drugs are. In fact, they want to tighten those rules. That's part of this review as well. They want to make it even clearer that you can't say who's terminated their life early, who the doctors are, who the drugs are, all in the name of transparency, ironically. This is the Orwellian doublespeak you get used to through this managerial bureaucracy. We all want transparency, they say in the review, but no, you can't know who the doctors are. No, you can't know any details about the patient. No, you can't know what the drugs are. So I just find it quite ironic. And Philip has got it right too in terms of who's running things. The fox in the hen house. Yeah, I mean, ultimately this review's been run by pro-euthanasia advocates. And to Kari there in Huntly, lovely and beautiful Huntly. I actually miss driving through there. I used to go through Huntly often. Of course, we've got the bypass now, the famous, amongst other things, Decker sign. And Philip is dead right, and then I should move on. The human rights have been compromised. This is right. I mean, fundamentally, if you want to choose to end your life early through euthanasia, that in New Zealand is legally your choice. Why now the harsh arm of the state is required to force doctors, nurses, and other healthcare providers to be complicit in it is ridiculous. Anyway, that's that. Then, of course, there was another review. Oh, that was the last point. As I was very circuitously saying, New Zealand's media has not reported about this review whatsoever. The Ministry of Health did not do any press releases, nor did the minister in charge. There's been nothing said about this. It just got dropped very quietly. And actually, kudos to a few friends of mine who got in contact and said, hey, did you know the review's been dropped? And as you know, I'm following this really closely. And, even I didn't find out about it. So, well, I did through friends. So, long and short, that's very telling, isn't it? The government's made no announcements. The Ministry of Health made no announcements. It just slotted it very quietly. Now, speaking of quietly, of course, around the same time, the Ministry of Health also dropped its review around puberty blockers. Just going to grab a drink with my lovely mug here. I actually have to say it has changed the way I do my coffee because now the volumes are different from my usual cup, so I'm still working on it. My cup's about half full here. So yeah, Ministry of Health being busy. They dropped another review around the same time as euthanasia. This was their review of the efficacy or the effectiveness of puberty blockers. And long and short, they said, actually, there's basically no evidence that puberty blockers work. And there's actually a little bit of evidence that they are harmful, particularly around the likes of bone density, fertility, and so forth. But the real important takeaway for you guys to understand, I mean, firstly, feel free to read the report yourself, but what they've done is gone, as in the Ministry of Health, has gone around the globe and looked at what evidence is available. And by and large, they're saying there's limited evidence, it's quite scant, and it's quite low quality. So it's really important, if you want to be objective, to say, look, there's not glaring evidence that it's exceptionally harmful, but there's neither any evidence supporting that it's any good. And in fact, if anything, it's leaning more to say it's completely ineffective on a whole range of metrics and actually harmful. So that's the really important takeaway. I was struck that despite the Cass reports that was done by Hilary Cass in April this year, the review touches on it, but only very briefly. But that particular review was seen as very gold standard, actually, and that you can sort of feel the ministry squirming around it. So long and short, they have recommended that people are much more cautious about prescribing puberty blockers. And understand this too, there are no actual drugs for puberty blocking. There are various hormone treatments for other conditions, which this very small group of New Zealand doctors are using what they call off-label, so using it in a way that's not originally intended, as puberty blockers, primarily for children. And as I say, there's no evidence that it's working well, and there is some evidence that it's actually harmful. And to be honest with you, you don't need to be a doctor or a pharmacologist to know that pumping enormous amounts of hormones and toxins into your body. Very kind comment coming from Marie here. I'd like to assure people that I have not paid anyone to do nice comments. But Marie, thank you very much. So long and short, they're just saying these are problematic. So it's important to be aware of as well. The evidence is scant, but what is out there shows that it can be harmful, but also it's not achieving anything. So that's really important. But what I found was fascinating is I'm looking for the next one. Here we go. This is a response of what's called PATHA. It's New Zealand's group of doctors who like experimenting on children in this gender space. So the Ministry of Health weirdly has said, well, we're going to open a consultation, I think till the 20th of January, to ask people what they think about this. So that was good. They are already, the ministry, trying to skew it to say, oh, well, we'd prefer to hear from certain segments of society, not parents. They said something like, those involved in the practice. In other words, they want to hear from doctors and the likes of Inside Out and other lobby groups who are supportive of what they call gender-affirming care. I think some of us would call it child abuse. But they're trying to narrow who can and cannot talk. But really importantly, all and everyone is welcome, because I would make the argument when it comes to our children, parents, teachers, grandparents, everyone actually has an interest in a say. But this is the headline from, it's not RNZ's fault, just quoting them, but they said the transgender health professionals are worried about the public consultation over gender-affirming healthcare. Well, you could probably change the headline from transgender health professionals to child abusers worried about public consultation over gender-affirming healthcare. I mean, this is the classic elites, guys, not wanting you or me to have our say. This is a very small clutch of doctors who make a lot of money, get a lot of research papers out based on this medical work that they do on young children. And just remember the context, that reviews are saying that puberty blockers probably do harm to children. Not efficacious, not effective, not doing good, harmful, or at the very least, not achieving anything. And that's what these doctors are doing. And they've been on the radio and still actually perpetrating what can only be lies now, because the evidence, because they're saying, oh, there's no evidence that these do harm. They're completely reversible. There's no problems. As I keep saying, the evidence does not support that. Okay? Now, the evidence is not wildly one way or the other, but it certainly does not say that this is reversible and it's all fine. So these doctors from this professional body, as I said, they're very self-interested to protect their work. Personally, I agree with some others in this space. And look, I'm not a health professional, but I've worked in health enough. I think this will be the medical scandal of our generation, that these, as they quote themselves, transgender health professionals will be seen for the criminals that they are. They are people experimenting on children. And that is appalling, absolutely appalling. Yeah, so it's very, very terrible. Ben says good morning to everybody. So good morning, Ben. Lovely to have you here with us. And to everyone else, of course. And a lovely message here from Corey. I didn't even know we were on TikTok. There we go. I suspect the Family First team, Corey, it's the one app I actually don't use. I mean, obviously there's thousands of apps. But I'm very involved in the China, or the communist China space, and critiquing what they do. So I've got real issues with TikTok. That's not trying to put anyone here off it. Just you'll never find me on TikTok. The Chinese have already tried to hack my emails and other systems, so I'm not going to let them get my data through the old TikTok. A couple of other things very quickly. Philip has got a very good comment. They're not taking it seriously. As to say, if you read the review, and look, most of it's quite medical, and that's not taken away from anyone's skill here. You can see they almost just cursorily go over the CAS report, which is, sad, really. It's the definitive work at the moment, and the important thing to understand is these guys here try to protect. These are New Zealand supposed professionals. As I say, you could just cross out and put child abusers. They're ignoring the evidence around the world. Why is it the likes of the UK, US, is it Finland, Norway? Piles of countries are actually pulling back and banning puberty blockers. Anyway, speaking of child abuse, we had this terrible story coming out of Rotorua. I think it was last week. The teenager was either 12 or 13. But I just thought I would highlight this very briefly. I mean, horrific in and of itself. An interesting array of men that were involved. But I thought the reporting was off. Talking about this 12 or 13-year-old as a prostitute. Well, no. At that age, they are not, cannot, and will not be consenting. This is just outright child abuse. This is sexual grooming. This is sex with a minor. If they're 12, you're talking paedophilia. If they're 13, strictly, something they call a phebophilia. I mean, let's be really clear. And this reporter completely misses it, as does a number in media. Again, talking about a prostitution ring, that young girls were being prostituted. No, they were being sexually assaulted. These are minors. These are children. It's appalling, and that's how it should have been reported. But instead you've got this, it almost gives it a slight air of legitimacy. They're not saying it's a good thing. Obviously, these people are being arrested and charged, but to suggest that these young ones are involved in prostitution, it sort of suggests, well, A, that's legal in New Zealand, and B, it sort of implies some sort of implicit consent. Well, they can't. It's sexual exploitation of children. It's sick. And in a small way, it's being... it's not indulged, guys, but it's just been slightly accepted by the way it's been. I just thought it was terrible. And then it's a range of other little topics that caught my eye. This one too, and you go, what's this got to go with New Zealand? But I've just been struck recently around headlines like this one. This one came from the BBC, and first and foremost, I think it's really good that these Afghan women in this case are speaking out about what the Taliban are doing. But why I thought I'd share it with you today is because I've been relatively close to the Afghan community here in New Zealand. Some of you will know I've travelled to Afghanistan a few years back. Long and short, I'm struck by stress the word some, hand-wringing, sort of the weak, woke Westies, wringing their hands about what's happening to women in Afghanistan and under the Taliban. And I suppose my message really is, well, why did you think we were there for 20 or so years, like New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Turkey, America? Why do you think we were in Afghanistan? Why did we lose good people? I think we lost 10 or so New Zealanders in Afghanistan, killed. We were there for a reason, now multiple reasons, but I just find it fascinating that the same woke, annoying people who demanded the West get out of Afghanistan are now the ones wringing their hands about how terrible is what the Taliban's doing. I mean, why were we there in the first place, guys? So anyway, it's just a small aside. Small aside. And then I thought this one caught my eye too. In fact, it came from some police. This is a headline again. Just shows you you've got to get beyond the headlines. This fear is coming from a very radical Marxist group who don't believe in prisons. and they fear-mongering to say, because the police are once again considering whether they should be armed. It's a very low-level discussion, but it's been put forward. I mean, for anything like me, you only have to pick up the paper every day and realise there's pretty much a shooting or a stabbing now every day. So the police are saying, look, we might want to consider what they call general arming. Anyway, this fear-mongering Marxist group says, well, more Māori kids might die. Now, whether that's true or not's one thing. But what I thought is fascinating is the counterfactual is they seem perfectly happy that our police officers could get killed. We know in recent years we've had police officers killed, and these men and women do an incredible job, are often seen in doing things in our world, in our society, which some of us can only think and dream about. Can't even imagine is probably what I want to say. So look, just long and short, I just thought again it was another biased, stupid, firstly that they had, actually they're welcome to speak to any group that they want to, but it might have been useful for this reporter to have given a bit of context about who this, it's basically an anti-prison group, very Marxist oriented, and yeah, claiming without any facts that there'll be more, and again just usually playing the race card, but the counterfactual is very much there that we don't care if police get killed. I mean, at the end of the day, our police officers are turning up to situations now where people are not just armed, but well armed. There was a situation here in Glen Innes, close to where I live, where a guy had an assault rifle in his car. So we're not talking a little pistol or the old sawn-off shotgun or 22. We're talking something pretty substantial here. So anyway, it was just not a small thing, but it just annoyed me when I saw the headline. And I've got a few people coming back through around, I think it was this story here. I'll just put, where is it? Oops, I've clicked the wrong one. There we go. Donna Lee makes, I think, a very valid point here, as does Kari. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And then Andrew says, good morning, lovely. It is, yep, it's actually not too bad. Believe it or not, I actually have been out gardening for a couple of hours before I came on, very quietly. No electric tools. I would have driven my poor neighbours mad. And I think Rosie sums it up quite well when we're talking about this one here. I mean, to be fair, the kids won't be the criminals, but yeah, we want our police protected. They're the ones who protect us. Last couple of points I thought, actually, because the time is zipping away. Been a lot of talk around the hikoi, a lot about what's been happening there and about Parliament. I just thought I'd share this to be fair, that I'm not completely biased. We've obviously seen what I think is inappropriate behaviour by the likes of the Māori Party and Labour, but the general standards are slipping across the House. Unfortunately, one of my former colleagues last week calling a Labour MP a stupid and add the rest in. Again, just not appropriate. And I suppose the key point I'm wanting to get across to people is that the general standards slipping in Parliament affects all and everyone. So, yeah, that's a small point. Corey's asking, is there a specific website or media source that you trust? Yeah, he wants to get good. Well, long and short, be very sceptical of mainstream media. I'll just see if I can put Corey's question up here. Yeah, be very careful of mainstream media. I mean, I'd still engage it, but, put on your thinking hat, a bit like we're doing this morning, reading through the headlines. My colleague James runs something called Pulse Point. It's, again, part of the Family First sort of media approach. He breaks down 5 to 6 news articles a week. Some of you may know I actually do a show on RCR, Reality Check Radio. That's a plug for my show, but also, that's some good news there. The Centrist does some good work, but I suppose what I tend to do myself, Corey, is I read a wide range, or as wide as I can, including X, and I then sort of collate the data. So I suppose a very long way of saying to you, there's no one website that I completely trust, but it's about sourcing a range of information and then working it through. So a good example is the other day, and I've actually just finished a Substack on this, about violence in Montreal in Canada. And so when I first saw that, because I saw it on X and these videos and claims of violence and effigy burning, police attack, cars burned, I went, is this true or not? So long and short, I took a while going across multiple media and X trying to verify it. So anyway, that's just a side note there. As is typical for me, I'm running out of time. There was more I wanted to talk about, but I will have to keep rolling. But speaking of Substacks, as I say, I've just done my one. This is it here, called Montreal Burns. You will see nothing about this in New Zealand media unless it's come up in the last few hours. But I wrote this Substack in reaction to, long and short, events in Montreal, pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, Hezbollah, anti-capitalist anarchists basically went nuts in Montreal while the Canadian Prime Minister, get this, danced away at a Taylor Swift concert. And what struck me is violence, burnings, attacks on police. Nothing was mentioned in New Zealand media or in much media at all. And so I raise questions about why that is. So if you jump onto substack.com and look for my name or On Point, you'll find the latest there. I also have a little bit of a comment about, is it Penny Nara? Whoever this All Black is who led the haka, I just basically call him out for the hypocrite that he is, because he used to be one of the leading voices against Israel Folau. You might remember Israel Folau gave his opinions on some topics and was pilloried and beaten to a pulp, including by this All Black, figuratively speaking. Yet this, or again, I'm probably can't even think of it. I don't follow the rugby enough, but long and short now, he's saying, "Oh no, well this, the hikoi, the treaty, it's important to me, so I'm happy to hijack the haka." And again, I'm not taking sides on the debate. It's more the hypocrisy of how, particularly the woke, the weak, the left, the Marxists, the critical race theorists, they're all happy for their voices to be heard, but they try to censor everybody else. So that's my latest Substack, so check that out. Oh, TJ Peniara. Yeah, I should know, I wrote his name in the Substack, but to be honest, I just thought he's just a whopping hypocrite. Bob McCoskrie, of course, is never to be outdone. My colleague Bob, and of course the founder and CEO of Family First, within minutes of me putting out a Substack, has his own. It's all about Jaguar, as you can see. So again, if you jump onto substack.com, look up Mick Blog or Bob's name, you'll find his. So I tend to write mine about once a week. Bob tends to write his every couple of days. So he's got a lot more content, which is really, really great. So as I say, jump onto Substack, check his out. And yeah, Philippa nails it. Well, he is. And again, the point, as I try to very briefly say at the end of this Substack, he's all for his view in sport, but he's more than happy to criticise other people's views in sport. And it's like, the old what's good for the goose should be good for the gander, and all of that. So guys, I think that's the main stuff. Oh yes, just to come back again, if you want part of my Mugs for Mugs campaign, you're not mugs, by the way. I think you guys are wonderful, but I just like word plays. If you'd like me to send you a mug, as I say, the mug will be free. If you want to help me cover the cost to courier it to you, get in touch either at simon@familyfirst.org.nz or at admin. Obviously, your name and address, and we'll help you from there. But in the meantime, I will play this little... Well, Corey was asking about other media. This is just a little bit of a suite of what else Family First has.
If you're looking for news that you can trust, commentary on key family and social issues, and conservative conversations, go no further. Family First has them all. Monday nights, live at 8 p.m, Straight Talk with our panel. Tuesday mornings, live at 8 a.m, Solid Ground with Simon O'Connor. Wednesdays, watch for the latest episode of Pulse Point to drop. We watch the news so that you don't have to. Thursdays, live at 5 p.m, political playback with Bob McCoskrie and Simon O'Connor discussing the week in Parliament and politics in general. Plus, there's regular episodes of social commentary with Mick Blog and interviews on family matters throughout the week. You can watch these live and also on demand on our website, Facebook page, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. Finally, something worth watching that you can trust. Go to familyfirst.watch for more details.
So there you go, guys. No shortage. And I saw one last question I'd put up. It's from Ben. He was asking me what I think of Free Speech New Zealand. I love their work, the Free Speech Union, Jonathan, Aileen and the team. Huge respect for what they are doing. I think very, very principled. They don't take particular views on topics, other than people are allowed to speak. So look, I just think it's great people. But anyway, guys, I have to away. I have more meetings. So lovely to have spent the last half an hour or so with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I love doing this show, love having engagement with you all. So thank you for all your questions. As I say, I've got a live feed of some of them here, and those of you who have been commenting on my Facebook page or on LinkedIn or X, I'll be checking those out later. But in the meantime, you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.